You probably could have been. And then there was like, really polite.
Yeah, you know, in a science group, my sister's or I can basically take anything that we're learning about and create questions about it. And they get to, it's like Family Feud.
Yeah.
And they ring the bell, they get an answer, and they get a point, and then they get extra points if they have a take home like 1 point, 3 points for their dad, and they get to play out. So we can do trash men.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they love it.
I wish I had thought about when I was a kid. I never thought about the POT, but that would have been awesome, even for high school kids, because they still love swimming.
And then we can have things in the trash cans from really far distances, whether I want them to or not.
Right, so you might as well incorporate it. That was one thing we used to do all the time, was they would just do what these teachers want. Yeah, just do it and shut up. I wonder how, and then the refocus makes a lot more sense today.
Yeah, like I really love that refocus. If I ever do need to use it, I can use it.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have to, you don't want it. I mean, ideally, you don't want to. But that's the step before you involve yourself.
By then, getting your stuff clear and prepared. Yeah.
That's not cute at all. So, basically, you can, for refocus? Oh no, separate things. I mean, but if you wanted to take the situation that kid, then that'd be a decision. So refocus it and all, hey, refocus as a whole isn't. Ideally it is, you know what, you're not really doing what I need to do, so I want you to go over and rethink about this. And basically, you're wording it, but the reality is you're removing them from the situation.
That's all I'm going to say.
You're taking them away from their friends. And if your focus is set right, I mean, I've seen some in classrooms where the kid kids was right in the middle of the kid. Others, well, that's not good. Now they just got a new audience. But if you were able to put it somewhere, not really in the corner, but where they're not facing everybody, and then send them over there, and then they have to review their behavior. And they have to come up, they have to verbalize it. And a lot of them will write, I was bad, I was talking, the teacher was mad. And so I had a forum that I made a forum, but they haven't put it out yet. And basically it has some quotes. And one of the schools does this. I think it might have been, they have a quote card. And I took it, and they had like a quote. I'm like, I don't know who that is. So I did like Taylor Swift, people they might know. I know Taylor Swift, but people that are a little more current. And I had quotes on there about characters, responsibility, discipline. And then what I thought would be a cool idea, and this isn't at all from trying to teach, this is just me, is the kid goes to there and there's a list of quotes. I want you to pick which quote best applies to what you just did and tell me why. Because then you're making a pick. And you're making it where they can't just write, I was lazy, and so, and it takes, I think that would force them to be a little more insightful. And for the kid that is, frequent flyer, they can't just keep writing the same thing. Because if you send them a second time, you'd say, oh, by the way, I need to give them a grade. And eventually you're going to get sick of writing. I hope. But I would say, like, on the third time with the same repeat offense, that's when you involve the teacher. Because that's what the kids do and quiet. So, I mean, that's your cutoff.
You got to point to the person you want them to share. I know you kind of shared your buddies, but you might have to figure this out. Share one PAT from your table group.
I read some good ones at homework. Do your trashy ball. Trash the ball? Trash the ball.
Any volunteers? Yeah, you got to share it.
I used to do the review for.
Okay, wait.
I used to review for mostly math. They like that a lot.
And did you tell them that they would have more time if they followed your directions carefully?
Yeah, because sometimes we have to end it early. Just like we had in the past before, it was like an actual time system. Just because we ran out of time, so they know that I could end it early, that we didn't have to go through the whole thing. So I let them know that it would be one of those times. Because if we go through to the end and there's a winner, the winner gets to go to the treasure box. So they want that too.
Nice. And did you use it once a day, once a week, once a month?
For the Kahoot, I'll use it once a week, but then the other PAT time I use is like project auditing. So that'll be more daily, where the Kahoot is like just a Friday thing, usually.
Nice. Nice. Alright, back table.
I use Trash Skipball. It's
Basketball.
Trash
Trash
Skipball because it's really easy for me to come up with questions to review what we learned for the day. My room's always set up for it. My kids love it, and so because they like any opportunity to throw things across the room
Nice.
into a trash can. So
She does it like Family Feud, where they have to come up and hit the.
Oh, I see.
yeah.
And did you have it set up in such a way though that they earned more minutes towards that time?
Not yet, but I will.
Okay, so now that you've introduced the PAT, now say, hey guys, we got 10 minutes for trash ball on Thursday afternoon, but throughout the day I will give you more PAT minutes if you, and you can have a list of things you want.
Yeah. I've started doing like at the beginning of class, I'm like, if we are able to all focus and stay on task and contribute, we will have time at the end for an activity, and they usually are they pretty much figure it out by that point, and so they get on it and stuff.
Okay, so try this. Alright, so you have scheduled 10 minutes for whatever it is, the activity you have, and you say, okay, we have 6 problems to do. If you can do them in 10 minutes or less, I will add bonus time to your PAT. So let's say it takes them 7 minutes. How much time's left over?
3.
I add 3 minutes. So now we're building towards that time. And now they understand, gosh, if we get this done quicker and it's still accuracy counts, there'll be penalties involved with mistakes, okay? Now let's say instead of 10 minutes, it took them 10 minutes and 40 seconds. Now what do I do?
Subtract.
Minus 40 seconds. Always subtract seconds and add minutes. So that you're building, they're never really losing all this, but they're understanding, oh no, it's 10 minutes. Now you're looking at your watch. And what happens to their friends? What do they do to the person that's lagging? It takes the stress off of you, doesn't it? Right? Right? If we can line up in 30 seconds, I'll give you, and then you can have automatic. Don't forget about that. Automatic. PAT. So that's the bells rung. Okay, kids, we have 2 minutes to get into class and sit down with their books out and their pencils up. If we can get there, I'll give you 2 minutes of PAT. Ready? Go. And sure enough, they'll get it done in a minute and a half, and you throw up another 2 minutes. And you're building towards that time. And they can see it on the board, so you're constantly writing the minutes down on the board. And they can see their time growing, and they're getting excited about it. And then when Larry messes up, well, we're almost there, but I had to subtract 18 seconds over here. One of you didn't make it.
You see them all go.
Right? And now Larry, instead of being getting reinforced for being the class clown, which has happened all year, because everyone laughs at Larry, now they're mad at Larry for messing up their PAT time. Right? Do you understand that? Okay, good. How'd it go back here?
It's good. No,
And
it's great.
Who had a PAT that was awesome?
I agreed. I liked the idea that they shared last time, and I used it. It was the baseball game.
Okay.
So I just had for math. So
Perfect.
kind of introduced it, told them, hey, we're going to be playing a game. You guys have to earn it, like early in the week. And it's a crazy good year, so they're going to earn it, like no matter what. But time on the board just frustrates them. So I don't use the time on the board.
Okay, so Benny has a special SDC class that he's working with, so it's a different clientele. That makes sense.
Yeah, and they just get frustrated when they see anything like time or like if I put a negative and all of a sudden their world is done. So I kind of just tell them verbally like, oh, you guys did awesome, whatever, and move on. So Friday came, we did it's a baseball game. There were 6 on 6 because everybody showed up. So they had 6 questions, and they get a run for every correct answer, and they don't get that point. They can't score that point, and they get a minus. So they could get a total of 6 points. And I just show them kind of where they're moving or home run, they get excited even though it's still like, they get their points, same points. But that's what I learned was I better learn the system a lot better because the scoring came and I was kind of like, this sounds fair, this doesn't, but they loved it and it was great for math. So I used freerice.com. They has a bunch of math questions and they get harder.
So you didn't have to think about it.
Yeah, so the questions get harder as they go. And I told them, I was like, can we use like whiteboards? So they all had whiteboards because then they had to really work them out. And they just have to like said, does your whole team agree on that answer? And then be like, well, yeah, because I saw that individual had to work it out, go back to the team, and then I had like I need to get bigger timers, but the SEM timers, they look bigger on Amazon. But it was good. It was positive.
Nice, nice. And did that motivate your students throughout the day, knowing that this game was coming?
Yeah, so they were kind of, I was kind of talking it up. They didn't know what was coming, but they knew like a new game, and it did motivate them too.
Nice.
They're good students already, but they were like going a little bit extra.
Good. How about this team?
We're getting prepared for our 6th grade science fair, so I just kind of put, okay, we have 15 minutes for our science fair. We're on task during our transitions. We've been having a hard time with them. I'll add an extra minute up there. Oh, we've had a little bit of time getting ready to go. We got to take away 30 seconds. So that's how I've been kind of keeping track of it. We've been trying to do it like 15 minutes a day or so, but a lot of them don't have enough time to earn super a lot, so we get like maybe 20 minutes maximum a day. But it has helped to get them motivated to it because I let them choose their project, I let them choose their groups, and I monitor as need be. So it's something that I think, oh hey, I get to sit with a friend and we get to work on something we want to do. So that's something that's I think been very helpful to us.
So when you're doing something in the morning, it's helping that by reminding them, coming this afternoon, we still have science fair projects, and I want to add more minutes. Help me out here. Kind of like that Jerry Maguire, help me, help you, right? Good, good. Show me the money. All right, is that everybody?
Yep.
All right, fantastic.
No, you didn't get that table right there. I saw them look at each other and go,
Oh, this is too.
Well, my partner shared the snowball fight for math, so she did that on Friday afternoons, and I did prodigy time for my students. My students love technology, so I did that. And we did the bonus where we built up on the extra
Nice.
time that we had, and it was really positive. We were both talking about it, how the students were like, we're gonna lose bonus math, and they had no clue what PAT stands for, but they still loved it, and it was really, really fun. And for my class, like usually I have the most trouble for Friday afternoons. They're just done tests and finishing up assignments, and whoever doesn't have all the work done, they are making up everything that day, and so their afternoon was just not going well. And then it reduced literally by 80% the undesired behavior that I had on Friday afternoons.
Nice.
And then the peer-to-peer motivation is about like 50% that it went up. So it was really, like for my class, it was really great.
Fantastic. Who tried Refocus or didn't understand it enough? Did anyone try the Refocus yet?
I use Refocus.
You use it?
Yeah, middle school.
Is it working for you?
It's working for me. We're on a different timeline right now where the attitudes are a little spiked only because they feel it, they know it's coming. They're almost about to go to the next grade, so.
oh, you're gonna deal with all that stress.
Yeah, they're going through testing right now, so yeah. And then we were told that they cannot do nothing, so they finish early. Like we have some buildings that finish early. They have to sit there. We cannot give them a scratch sheet of paper. They cannot read a book. They have to sit there and be quiet. Who knows how that's gonna go?
That's brutal.
Yeah,
That was
I
brutal
haven't
for
done
me.
my
Yeah, middle
testing
school.
yet for math, but for ELA, I don't even know how they did, but I can just imagine because today was not the day.
I read somebody, I commented on somebody's homework about that. Somebody mentioned you were doing SBAC testing or whatever, and my thing, and it says hard to implement the PATs. I would encourage you to make sure that that's the most critical time to have them, because they've been sitting there waiting, brain drain. I mean, they need something to engage them that is fun and learning, or you're going to lose them, and they're going to be jerks. And that's why I think that's really important when you are testing. If you have even a minimal amount of time, use it. Do something cool, fun.
I found that out today. I was like, oh my gosh, you guys are like drained. You guys don't even know like what's 8 minus 6. We have 8x minus 6x, and do you know they were like trying to figure it out? Like, oh my gosh.
But you know, they get stressed. They get really stressed about the test. And they get, I mean, I'm just looking at my kid and, you know, she never gets in trouble, but she freaks about stuff like that. She had a meltdown the other day because she had a competition and I go, really? You're going to have a meltdown and sit in the corner and cry? I go, oh, what do you think athletes face when they're playing like the #1 team and stuff? I go, come on, suck it up. That's ridiculous. But to them, it's very real. You know, I'm looking at it going, it's a stupid competition. But in her world, it's very important. And these tests for some of these kids are very important, even though they don't act like it. And the kid that's struggling is usually the one that goes, I don't give a crap about this.
All right, do you see now the logic of why we place this on the 9th and 10th sessions instead of back in August? I mean, some of you are going, oh gosh, I wish we would have had this in August, but we didn't want you to wear it out. One of the pieces of feedback I'm getting from our middle schools is that refocus is being used.
Yep.
And in other classes, when the teacher finally is ready to use it, the student is fine, just give me a refocus, I'm, you know, and whatever, and they're going through the motions, and it's not having the effect they want, in my opinion, because they haven't layered it with all the other things that we've been talking about. With
Well, we
proximity.
wanted to put this in the front. We debated that, and then we were like, no, we can't. We need to lay the foundation first.
Well, I feel like I'm in the middle of it because like I've always had PAT time for my tech because I'm a technology-driven math class. So for me, like my classroom is built on technology. Chromebook time is always every single day. So now it's like they know they have to work to get it. But now I'm like, we're at the spike of their attitude, spike of, you know, breakup, girlfriend moments happen. You know, the
Spring fever.
spring fever, darn it, we're fighting against everything every day. So now I feel like when I said, okay, you know, here we go, guys. Let's just do this one problem that we've been doing, and they could not get it.
Here are all
and
the
I'm
answers written on your desk.
I gave them the darn answers that make sense of it. Either you're gonna plug it in or you're gonna prove that this is the answer. And it was still like they could not get it. So I'm just trying to figure out like, you know, another motivation, because right now it didn't seem like the Chromebooks, it's like whatever, I'm done.
Yeah, 6th graders all of a sudden realize that there's an opposite sex in the classroom, like, you know,
Yeah.
there's girls in here? This time of year is tough, there's no way around it.
Well, for me, we have refocus since last school year. It's just a now, and I put it on my reflection. I learned how to properly use it, and I kind of started again. I explained the steps. This is what you do, and this is what happens when you get the first one. This is what happens when you get the second one. Whereas before, I was like, okay, go refocus, and they're like, okay. So now they understand, okay, if I do it once, I'm going to lose my recent card. Like, there is no options. And if they get to a certain amount, you go to lunch attention and this and that. So they understand the process.
Good.
And so they know what to expect
Good.
now. It was a little hard explaining, like, why is she doing this at the end of the year when she made it already? So.
That's all right.
I did observe a math class last week, and I not very often, but it was one of those cases where I walked in and went, oh, no. And one of the things was he had no real procedure for putting away Chromebooks. All right, put away the Chromebooks. Well, the kids kind of meandered over to the, oh my goodness. There was kids getting up out of their chair when he was helping another student. This kid was moving over here, and so I hear you guys say classroom management is better or pretty good right now, and I want to give you credit for that. I want to make sure that you own that credit. I have teachers that I've seen, especially my second years, when I walk in and wow, this is great. And they say, well, I have a great class this year. As in, I had a not so great class last year. And I make sure that the teachers understand, no, it's all you. The kids are the same every year. The reason that they're behaving is because of you. I guarantee you, if I take that teacher I was talking about and put him in your classroom, in about a week, it would be a disaster. It doesn't matter if it's the best kids on earth or the AP class or not. You guys are doing a great job, and I want you to own that and understand that if you're having a great experience with classroom management, that's on you. Well done.
I can say a lot of the classrooms that I've been into, I've been blown away. You know, because I went to some last year that I was literally not blown away. that were terrible, absolutely terrible. And when I walk into most of your classrooms, and I know the kids act funny when somebody new is in there, but they don't know who I mean, I'm not dressed like an administrator, and that's part of the reason why I don't dress like that when I come to your classroom. You know, they eventually they'll start, I just become a wallflower. And it's kind of cool to watch them and watch you, because I don't think you realize how good you are. And if you go into some other classrooms, you're going to be like, oh, I am good. So, I mean, I would take that opportunity if you could, because you're going to respect your time that you've put in. Because this is stressful stuff, but it makes it better on the end. And I think on somebody's homework, I wrote that is, you know, lay the groundwork, go ahead and work it. This is your practice year. And then next year you get to fix it. Every year you're going to fix something better, make it better, another step. Tweak a lesson, tweak all your lessons, whatever. But the discipline part needs to get better every year. And because we get older, we get more tired. And we don't have the stamina to deal with, you know, the crappy kid. The kid that acts crappy, let me clarify that. But you know, you're tired. Especially at this point in the school year, you're tired. Even though you guys just came back from spring break, the end of the year seems so far away. And a teacher friend of mine put on Facebook this morning, she's retired, and she said, isn't this the time of year when all the kids come in and say, what can I do to bring my grade up? And I said, yeah, and the time when all the parents call you and say, what can my kid do to do their grade, you know, get the grade up, and basically blames you that the kid's failing. You're like, well, what about all the communication I have with you? Emails, phone calls, you never returned any of them. Now you're worried? I mean, that is notorious of what happens, especially at least in the high school level, because they're not as involved until the very end. And then it's your fault the kid doesn't pass. Yeah, that's why I quit teaching seniors. I'm not working to do this very long, but I would like for you guys to, take 2 minutes real quick. Sign in and get a paper. I think that's what his sign language meant. It wasn't profane, so. What was the most beneficial aspect of this program for you? And please, I don't know why that and's on there. Record your group's comments and put it somewhere so we can see it, because we need to tweak this, and we know that. You guys were our first group, and you know, tell us what you liked and what you felt like needed to be improved on.
My wife is throwing it in my
Once an assignment is assigned, compassion is what word?
This one's okay.
Well, especially if we, because like, that's like the kids that you learn in the day. Or the pre-credential teacher support.
Oh, this makes my step. I love the step by step. Go back to your box. Go back on the step. And if you do virtual, you can say this one's that one. Step by step.
Oh, I use it all the time.
Yeah, there you go.
And I like the visual one.
I said I didn't know that.
That's what I'm gonna use it for. Well, And then pretty sure once you look at the all
You're like every day like this.
Excuse me, Larry.
effective time.
Right? And I said, are you serious? Oh, I really did
Alright, wrapped up? Now we're getting into the good stuff. I mean, that stuff's really good for us. We want to see it. So if you put it in the middle of the table, we'll get it. We're going to go over the refocus and make sure that you guys kind of understand how to use it, when to use it, why to use it, and the most effective way to use it. Because the idea behind refocus is this. It is not supposed to take extra work for you. It is not supposed to take you away from your lecture. It is not supposed to take you away from your teaching. And if you do it right, the burden's on the kid, not on you. The problem is you have to set it up. The first thing you're going to ask yourself when a kid's misbehaving, or making a noise, or farting in class, whatever, you ask yourself 3 questions. And those are the classroom integrity questions. We've revisited this, I think, on almost every session. Can you still teach? You know, if you're shaking your leg, it doesn't bother me the least. I don't care. But I can see that your classmates are staring at you because she's shaking the desk, right? Can they continue to learn? Some of your kids, like if they were best friends all their lives, they're probably used to it. Doesn't bother them. I don't need to address it. But can she still learn? Is she still learning while she's shaking her leg? Probably better when she's shaking her leg. I mean, so some of the behaviors, you've got to ask yourself these 3 questions before you jump. And it's going to become natural the more you see these questions. It's going to be a quick thing. You're going to go, okay, yeah, that kid's disruptive, and his whole table is joining in. Problem, okay? So remember the CIQs. That's what we call these. You're going to have, I'm going to pass out this reading here in a second, but I want to encourage you guys when you're doing the refocus to don't be real quick to send it out. Don't be real quick to send a kid away. But if he has not responded, or she responded to all your prompts, your proximity, if you've tried all of these, are called proactive approaches, right? You're doing it before it becomes a big deal. If they're not responding and they continue to be defiant in their behavior, that's when you use the refocus. Okay, know that for right now. This handout is really short. It's a case example of how to use refocus appropriately. And on the back are some questions. If you'll work on those, we'll give you 10. Steve's gonna be excited to come put his timer back on. many of you guys are on? Okay, quietly reading.
What grade are you teaching? Oh wow. We just changed ours. Because then it's like we're trying to be more in tune with the kids.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for that.
Yes, please.
You can take that. I have a whole like I said, when I sub, I need to carry it.
Pen, right?
Yes, he does. He's over here. Teaching everything, Sarah. Ready to go.
Outside.
But you're not.
They have to teach that. They don't need to either collect or
Don't hit the
what's up?
With my kids, you have a kid change it. Ways to archive it. And then they sign it.
Like I said, we just brought it up.
For like 2 weeks. I was like, nope, sat my class for the rest of the year. But when you had a psychologist, like half of it, I wasn't even all day. So I felt like, and I was like, no wonder.
When we talked about Indian
Oh, it's
I'm like making kids think instead of and so they ask me.
Because everyone's different. We had standards, but we had to change ours.
Yeah, but that's not gonna decide. And it's not gonna, again, you don't want, like, I don't like the front between the eye and the eye. We don't know how to do that.
Give them much attention.
I don't know. I know everybody does that because they actually like so that's what I'm doing is that she doesn't well no they have like the
Yeah.
like Excel sheet where they
And the other sheet comes.
So the doc gets sent.
no I don't think the document gets sent. I think that the teacher actually I know for teachers we don't do that, but I know right now it is.
Like 6 different. I told Jared I was going to get him much that much at Red Sox. What did he say? He was okay.
Alright, I'm gonna cut it right now. Wrap it up. because some of you were reading or chatting, but I had 2 staged misbehaviors. One that I just was able to correct with prompting and proximity, and then this young man over here was persistent and was shaking his knees, hitting the table, and you can see his table mates couldn't quite tell if it was staged or if he was just being a jerk. And so when I kind of walked over, and then I sent him to timeout, and he kept raising his hand trying to get the answer, and I waited. Huh?
I noticed that and I was like, what the heck is he doing?
So then when he had his hand up and all that, I ignored it, and then when he was finally turned around and paying attention over there, then I went over and asked for his form, and then he actually filled out a form. And then he was talking about, he didn't know the quotes were on the back, so he put his own quote and what it meant, but you know, most of our kids aren't going to do that. Or they're going to quote a rapper or something, which wouldn't always be horrible, wouldn't be horrible, but you just don't, you know, you kind of want to have control over that so it doesn't get really nasty and profane. So on this reading, I don't have one in my hand, basically it was a case study showing you how it can happen in another classroom. I really just had you do that because it was informative, and then I could have the staged behaviors. In refocusing, the goal is to eliminate the repeated requests. I probably gave him too many chances, but that is always how I've been. I think I approached her 2 or 3 times. Okay, I would say 2 or 3 times, and after that, you're done. But you shouldn't have to say much of anything. You know, just standing here. If you're comfortable with the kids, you put your, you know, or point, you know, that kind of thing. You don't. But the idea is you shouldn't be going home exhausted. Contingently, just withdraw your attention when the withdraw attention when the problem behavior occurs. When he initially started it, I walked over, tried to get him to stop for a second, and I walked away, and he started it again. That was all to get a reaction. So I didn't react. And then when I was a little more comfortable and he wasn't as loud, I went back over. You want to withdraw the attention. The classroom, he's trying to get attention. So part of the reason why you remove him to refocus is when he was sitting over there, nobody noticed him. He wasn't in the front of the classroom anymore. He's back there. And even if he started to do, you know, raise his hand, Miss Taylor, or, you know, knock the table, he's still not in the front. He's not in everybody's eye line. And that makes it a little easier. Retain behavioral momentum. In other words, when you give them a request, or not a request, an order to, I need you to be quiet and be reading, okay? That's not a question. It's a compliant. I expect them to be compliant to my command. And refuse to let it escalate. He tried. He tried to. He's, you know, he did all that, and I just didn't address it. Let him throw a fit. You know, he wants to, you know, and all that, that's fine, but you're going to do it over there, right? And so you let him do that a little bit, and you just kind of don't acknowledge it. Because he's doing it again to get a reaction from you, and if you don't react, his classmates aren't going to react. So you've killed that. And developing self-control, we hammered that. The Queen Elizabeth thing and all that. So the goal is you remain calm. The purpose. They will complete a form to reflect on their behavior and make a positive plan. Most of the refocus forms that you have seen and the one that's in your packet, it says, what did you do? Why was this a problem? And what are you going to do to fix it? Well, that's great because those are good questions. They're going to rattle off their little flippant answers. When you get to the bottom and you say, that's why I think the quote's important. You know, look at the quotes. Tell me which one is most applicable to your situation and explain to me how this applies to what you just did. The fact is, when they're refocused, they can still hear you. You don't want them to leave your classroom. You don't want to lose the control of the child. However, at least when they're doing this, they're having to synthesize something and actually process it. If they don't answer it, you make them sit there till they do. You know, a lot of kids do 20 things at once. They're hearing you. Learning continues for everyone else. Some of you noticed him, but he didn't take away from your learning. And she stood up and tried to get everybody at her table to listen to her and all that. And they did. They looked at her, and then when I walked over, all of a sudden all their heads went back down. And refocus, this is where somebody asked in one of their homework assignments that they didn't like refocus because they thought it was punitive. It's not meant to be punitive. And when you get to the point where you're so angry and you go, just go refocus, then it's punitive. If you say, hey, I think it might be good for you, no, don't even question it, but that's how I would have said it. I need you to go refocus. You're not saying, you're not mad, you're very calm, I need you to reevaluate your behavior. Whatever you need to say, but don't let it be out of emotion, because then he's or she has won. Proactive steps to take before you send the kid to refocus. Prompts, diffusers, proximity. Like if he just stood up and said, "This is so stupid," he's trying to get attention. And if I just said, "That's nice, go ahead and have a seat." I didn't react, I stayed calm, just go. I think it'd be appropriate for you to refocus this. When to refocus? After you've used all the proactive steps. Some of you are going to be way lenient and give them 20 chances. I don't encourage that. They need to know that you're serious and that your discipline follows up with what you say. So if I'd gone over to him and done it 20 times, he's going, "I can push her. How far can I push her?" I mean, I do that and I'm 50, so value what you teach. This is the part that bothers me the most. People are so quick to throw kids out of their class. Why don't you value what's going on in your classroom more than that? What you have to say is vital. Your relationship with that child is vital. And if they're sitting in an office, sitting in the hallway, waiting for all their delinquent friends to show up next to them, they're not learning anything from you. And they're certainly not learning anything in the office. You guys all know how that goes. Unless they have a favorite secretary or something who lets them go run errands, then they've defeated the whole purpose. So make sure they stay in your class. You have that control. You don't have to let them go. And only you dismiss from refocus. He raised his hand several times. Ignore it. And then when you go over and do it on your time, you know class kids the kids in your class are watching you. Because if he doesn't get acknowledged with his Horseshack hand, then they're going to realize that you're not going to respond if they're over there doing that. It needs to be consistent. It's less labor intensive for you. That's what I liked. One of the reasons why I never wrote any referrals is I never wanted to stop talking long enough to sit down and write one. And I think it distracted my class. Then they're like, "Oh, do you see Bonnie? He got in trouble. I wonder what she's writing. He's going to go." And then they wait for the liaison to show up, and it's a big deal. Don't make a big deal out of it. And admin will know that you did all the steps. Steve trained the admin early summer, late summer, on what we're going to be teaching you and the steps that it was going to go. Now, administration has been majorly shuffled this year in some schools, but we'll continue to train them. But the goal is they know that if you send a kid with a referral and three focus forms, you've done your job. If the kid is still defiant, throwing chairs or whatever, you can't have them in your class. That's when you call admin. And for me, I would say 3 times, boom, done. Early intervention, that's what you're doing. You're trying to get the early behavior before it goes up the ladder or up the steps to bad seed. Graceful exit. Ideally, when you send a kid to timeout, they quietly get up and walk to timeout. I mean, not timeout. When they refocus. If I say go to refocus, ideally they're going to quietly get up and walk over. But the reality of that is not very realistic, okay? So if I say that to her and she gets up and she's like, "Hey, what's up? What's up? Yeah, we're going to dinner tonight. Yeah," and makes all these noises, that's where I would probably walk over next to her and just walk with her. Don't say a word. If they don't want me, I'm messing up their mojo if I walk with them. I'm not cool. So I would make sure, instead of just going, "What are you doing? Shut up!" Or, "Go! I told you to go!" Well, at that point I'm mad. And they've won. So try to make it as inconspicuous and subtle. But it's not always going to happen that way. There's going to be days where you're fed up and you go, "Just go. Just go."
Or we have kids who they're like, "Well, I'm being sent out, might as well make it worth my while," and then shout something as they walk out the door.
Parting shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just, it's supposed to be graceful going out or going to and going back. The reason they say exit and entrance is when you have a buddy teacher. And I will talk about that, but fourth thing is while they're at refocus, this is what they revisit and have to analyze. And then when he was ready, I said, "Are you ready to come back and join us?" "Okay, cool. Finish your reading." Or "We're on page 20," or whatever. Whatever they're doing, that's where when he says, and you read the form and you go, "Yeah, it's okay." If it's not okay, you hand it back to him, you don't get nice, and you go, "I think you need to redo it." And then for a kid that, let's say he gets in trouble 3 times today, I refocus him 3 times. If he continues the behavior, I'll go, "I need you to go refocus again." Apparently, first time wasn't enough. They go over there, he does the same quote. You go, "Nope. You need a different quote." you're a repeat offender at this point, you need to come up with something else. And then when you're ready to let them back in class, don't let them call you over there, don't let them bang or make such a scene that you have to go over there. You wait until he gives up with this, puts his hand down, then you go, okay. Kind of like, I hate to use this analogy, but it's kind of true. It's like training a dog. When you tell him, I don't want you to cross, no, yank, no, yank, no, yank. And then the next time you take the leash off and you wait to see if he goes, and all you have to say this time is no. Because they've learned. That's kind of the same thing here. And I mean, it is behavior, and behavior is behavior, whether it's a child or animal. I say that because I have 8 million animals, and none of them are trained. I told you how calmly student goes to the refocus area. Yes, sir. Student fills out the form, waits for the teacher to address him or her. When the teacher has a pause in the lesson, then you go over and address them. And basically what I just told you. I was in some classrooms last year, and every time a kid even looked sideways, go to refocus. And then they go to refocus, and then he'd go, you know what? Just leave. I thought, wow, that's not effective. Not only that, you completely lost that kid. Because the kid's walking away going, what a jerk. Well, there's probably more harsh word that he uses, but you're not going to ever have that kid back. Ever. Because you just dissed him in front of all his friends, you disrespected him, and the whole point in refocus is you treat the kids with dignity and integrity. Even if they're a jerk, they deserve that. Because there's usually something behind that behavior. Doesn't mean you put up with it in your classroom, poor behavior, but that's why you don't get mad, that's why you just say, I need you to refocus. And that is a time too when you walk over and you look at the form, You got about 30 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever you have, 5 seconds, to maybe say, are you okay? Are you having a good day, a bad day? What's going on? At least at that moment, the kid goes, oh, they kind of do care about me. I mean, if you just walk over and go, fine, go back to your seat. That's not showing much compassion or understanding. And even though he may have totally ticked you off, the fact is the calmer you stay, the more control everything is going to be. If a kid, let's say, student B over there sees that I get upset with him, now it's a challenge. Who's going to tick her off, make her upset the fastest, the quickest? And I'm speaking of maybe 1 or 2 kids that you might have in your whole career. Or you might have a ton of them, I don't know. But the reality is if you can keep it calm, keep it structured, and keep it consistent, they will respect that. They're not going to be perfect, you know that, but this is my pretty chart I made. Preventing disruptive behavior. This is how they work. The behavior's starting. He started doing this. I have to decide right away. Is he disrupting these guys? Is he disrupting me? Is he disrupting himself? Well, he wasn't disrupting himself at all. He could totally do that and still be paying attention. But I can see both of them looking at him like, what are you doing? Right? So obviously he's already disrupted them and they can't read when he's doing that. I have to address it. After I've done the CIQs, then I do proactive. I need you to stay focused. I need you to be reading this. I need you to be quiet. Stop. Please stop. Not please. Don't ever beg. I need you to stop annoying your classmates. And then, yes, learning continues. If that doesn't work, then you got to go into the whole refocus part. If they're a repeat offender, you refocus. Primary teachers, this is where we're talking about buddy teachers. This works best with primary, but I could see working with, I could see it working in middle school and occasionally high school, but I think it would have to be the perfect setup for high school. Because if you have a kid running around the hallways, you're just opening up a world of trouble. Basically, I have a partner teacher. He's bad. He's misbehaving, and I go over and I've given him 3 warnings, and now I'm refocusing him. But I have an arrangement with Melissa that my students are going to go to her classroom. He's going to make a scene the first couple times, and how you address it is going to be key. That's where I would say, I think you need to go to refocus, and then maybe you walk with them. They go to Melissa's room. They are supposed to, you have to train this. When they get to the door at the other teacher's room, they stand until the teacher says, come on in, go sit and refocus. They do their form. When they're ready, they wait. The teacher walks over and says, same policy as if it was her own kid. You know, read the paper, read the note, blah, blah, blah. Okay, you can go return to your class now. Now, what do you do when the kid comes back to your class? He waits right there at the door until I go over and address him. And to be safe, if it's a class clown, you don't want him standing there very long. Because they're going to start entertaining people. So I would go over as soon as I could and see the form, and if it's filled out the way I want it to, I would say, you know what, you can return to your table, but I need you to be on page 4. And then again, you've got about 5 seconds there to maybe have a little connection with the kid right there. That's pretty much what I just said. Here's the follow through. This is where a lot of teachers and administrations don't get it. Well, what good is the form we were just talking about over here? What are they supposed to do with the form after they filled it out? Well, if I were you, I'd have a file for every kid. And that day, I would just keep those files every time they had a refocus. If they have 3 in one day, I would refer. If it's the same behavior, if it's him still beating on the desk and I've given him refocus 3 times, dude, in your head, I'm done. It's time for you to leave. You don't tell him that. At that point, when he's doing his 3rd refocus, when you get a break, you go over, call administration, whatever it is your policy is at school, and they come get him. At that point, you've got 3 pages of documentation to show them. If you have to write a referral, that's where you'd have to take the time to do it. But after 3 refocuses in a 50 to 90-minute classroom, that's pretty excessive. I wouldn't think you'd have to do it more than twice, unless a kid's really having a bad day. I would keep those forms, though, for when you have that parent at the end of the year that says, you've never told me anything's wrong with my kid's behavior, and blah, 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 and you're like, really? I have right here that, he's had 3 refocuses, and then we referred him, and I know the administration called you, and then I called you also, and you didn't respond. At that point, you're having to reach out to the parents, because it's gone beyond your classroom walls. You've got to reach out and be proactive. And you have to do a teach-to with it. In order to teach these kids exactly how to do what you want. Because what you do in your room as refocus might be a little bit different than how I do. I might be a buddy teacher, and you might be a solo, is what they call it. And I can tell you when I was teaching, I didn't want anybody to deal with my kids except me. And I had my own refocus, not a refocus section, but I had an area where I sent them. And I didn't want other people involved. I didn't even want administration involved, because those were my kids. Until if a kid was really bad and belligerent and offensive, or hurting someone or hurting himself, whatever, that's a different story. This is for emergent behavior. Teach it. Teach them exactly how you want them to do it. Here's an example of one of the forms out of the book. All of your schools have their own little forms. I think it should be standardized, but we're not there yet. And it's the same questions that they were going to ask. What was I doing? Who was I hurting? Who was I affecting? What's my plan to fix it? That's the big thing too. What's my plan? Make these kids set some goals. And some of your kids who are just, I can't sit still, Miss Taylor, I just can't. Well, let's come up with something so I can help you so that you're not disrupting the class, but you can still stand up next to your desk or whatever. That's where you have to be communicative with your students. Oh my God, I never thought we'd get here. Bathroom break, go. Bathroom break, I know, huh?
Does it all that stuff? 6, and then we'll be like, I got the secret. Where's the but so long. Like, you cannot take pictures. And walk one from school? Yes. And I'll show you we're just letting them. So we put him on the bus. 5 minutes later, Mom would come and get him. I'm like, special needs brother? Mom was saying that anything that started right when third grade in my head. Books like just intently like and the third one was the responsibility. So one day I think me and maybe Cabal walked up and Mom's like, my mom knows. So, yeah, I'm like, you cannot take him off the bus. He may not walk home with you. Get to the bathroom. Whatever you cannot get the bus. Left his house and was what? Yes, DJ was like, you can still select the whole back to Sally Spielberg's sister. I think we don't have a sister. Actually, she's really happy because she's my sister. And she has to like keep him in the seat and he's all crazy. I remember when he started with his meds, Mom brought him like a crusher, crush, and was like pouring his sauce. And like yours one day was like, I think the crusher was she was like, here, take this, and he just like took it. He took it and she was like, so one nurse had those two nurses. One has like a cut, and another one's like, no, just take it, you're fine. So that's what I did. Like, you're fine, just like give it to them most days because they're not there. So funny. He's like, no, you're fine. Put it in your mouth, drink it, let's go. And he just does it. Move on. He will milk everything you let him know that way. One of my little boys today, I think he was sick all weekend, so he came to school like flustered. Somebody else got him on the bus, so he was like thrown off. My aide wasn't there, thrown off, and he was just like, today, when he gets nervous, he like, so by like the afternoon, he kept saying, I can't handle it. I can't, it makes me sick, I can't handle it. I can't, so he like, on the house, sick, and so his like cough gets louder and like stronger and more often. It was ridiculous. Rachel was like, is it okay? And I was like, I think so. You're a little crybaby today. Let's go talk to Miss Grace. I was going to try to have my doctor about like I have them like in a little like horse so she's like this. Like this in space. I said, do you have the other? Yes. And that's what she told her too. That's a yes. Relax. Oh yeah. Put her hand on my face and relax. What are the kids trying to do to stop teaching already? Jeez, enough with the teaching already. So she gets me off and then she starts crying. Then yells at my parents. I don't be nice. I sat down, starts crying again when I start. He gets like, yeah. Then I like start exiting.
Where are you going? It's like questioning me. You should do that. I mean, hard for another 15 minutes. How do you get in the school day? I was like, I already know it. So I'm already anticipating that. I wouldn't have to pay. If I know that we were around, make that and so we got 2 reds. And then we had to redo, we had counter reds and green. And that was another I was like, nope, no offense. Happy today. I had one so I was like, the library just scored like last 3 weeks like 80%. Not getting everything. He's just like, but doing it and looking at limited number of days, so much. But so I think some extent I've noticed with other ones, it doesn't have a time on it. Like, they've like been to school, like so they answer the question, yes, I go to school. So the ones like after I say it takes really like 2 or 3 months for them to and then it's always like there's a new person who comes, the person who was the new person is it's like the edge is taken off them, you know, the pressure of being how everything well, this year we've like maintained like a number of 13. There's some that left. So if we had everyone in the beginning of the year, whatever 13 or but apparently last year there was 28. Like with the as much anymore. But they through the years said like everyone started the year with extra hour of the day testing with kids. The kids are checked out. No way. Yeah, I sent her that email that they most of everything is traveling, but there is like maybe 4 out of the 13 that are here living.
Because she, after she does the reporting at the IEP, she's done, but I'm not.
Their parents are
So, nope. She's like, oh, it's because there was someone who complaining that we only did some week.
well, there's one I know that was in
One of the course.
finally decided to have that done my second goal.
I got it done to
first one of my toys.
And save us pay for but like she only knew that when it was like those basic things that you find out. So like she knew it. And so she had to get it told she had to answer the first day of questions. So and any restaurants around the area, things like that, so she could answer those kind of questions. So I guess it takes 2 weeks for me to get her bring her class to she said, why? She said everything in her case is like
Are the kids not really good enough? Yeah. They don't really need it this level. Because I'm never out.
That's how she is. Other ones I love their you know, they get set on the plate.
Like, you even correct it. She's like, nah.
Yeah, like their moms are working, their dad comes here. He doesn't want to feel either.
Oh no,
Yeah, there was like one day where we came in and she lost it. We transferred her out. Yeah, like once they told her, they told her to send like
and then she has it like the next day.
the one kid because they got a red so when I figured out they got a red here and they're only allowed it's like I've never had this little one and once I'm on three it's right here I haven't done it before that I know what you're talking about but I like that I don't know and because he doesn't write that all the time you know, but then he's I don't know what to correct. Like, is it wrong system or is it? Yeah, I don't know. But I feel like I like them every time. So I'm gonna just try to see like a letter about to use them. There's pictures and then I'm gonna ask about it. So, but it's even like for like a line with paper, you know, information side. He writes it like down. Totally set it so different. You know, the white part's down here. He's down like that here. It's like. These know if you can. So I feel like so all we can try to do is right from Apple when they go to when they come back, they found out because it's hard to but I try to make Spanish like because the others that are beyond that now.
Good job.
So we do a lot of focus. So try to get some joy. I need to just like to
Alright, every table is going to have a claude, a topic. And you're going to, basically we're going to try to get you to recall everything you can remember about this topic that you're given. How come, I gave you guys one, right? Yes.
it's our table.
Oh wait, I gave you the wrong one. I gave you the one with the answers. What do you, does yours have it too?
It's still
No, that's good.
Oh,
You guys have one of those? Yeah, you got the right one. Okay. You guys got the right one? Yeah. And you guys have one too, right?
I don't think I got one.
You guys didn't get one?
Is it like this
The whole group.
Okay.
You know what? I'll split you guys in half. You guys do that and then you guys do it. Alright, everybody has a card. A card is, pertains directly to a topic that we've covered in here. Your job is to, you're going to get up and teach us. You're going to get up and basically review what the key points of each of these topics were. And we don't expect you obviously to know them perfectly. That's why I have my cheat cards that I accidentally gave you. But there's certain things we're looking for to make sure that you guys get it. And if you don't mention it, then we'll mention it. You're going to basically together as a group come up with the key points. And then one, two, or all of you will come up here, put the key points up here, and tell us what they were. Simple enough? Yeah. Okay, there's one group for accountability, and you guys are accountability and motivation too, right? Okay, you're not doing the refocus though. You'll do everything but refocus. They're going to do refocus. Okay? Alright. You guys ready? You can write on them. You got 15 minutes.
I just shoved it all
expectations, they don't know the expectations.
Yes. Turned away.
Be okay.
Oh, and the thing about this is like really
They're explaining the concept.
Oh, this is like my
That's so funny
So there was another session on detachment expectations. I think there were part one and already part one.
There was just like the
We can talk a lot about teach to staying calm, the whole, excuse me, what's your name? No. explain proximity to green, red zone, yellow zone, green zone, and then report, you know, how to good report, you know, kids are willing to work with you, if you have good report, then you're supposed to, you know, kids are feel like no respect.
Let's hear more about that. It's like,
Yeah, so when we get up there, it's like,
Not anything you don't understand.
5 and 4/5. What's the self-control? Self-control for us?
I think so, like fight or flight kind of a thing.
Staying calm and self-control are the same thing. So like, somebody could write the things on the board and then the person takes like a top note I talk about, or
they probably would say it works.
so who wants to talk about it?
Ownership, understanding.
That's fine.
But there's only 4 topics.
Come up with it.
When they've done these
Yeah. Could we do the thing about how it's like they should have like 5 go-to rules and then the rest of the applications is just questions?
Yeah.
Alright, there we have 5. Okay, I'll take explaining proximity.
Yeah. I was like, because it's like when you see it like day by day, it's like so and you like put those effective learning experience. I only see you know, like the chair got stuck in my
Alright, we got a plan. We got 10.5 minutes left.
And make sure that the other thing is make sure the front. I put boring in my notes, but it's really boring. Just figured and a lot of people had. Yeah, and then I was trying to teach him English one time, and he stayed with me on track. So trying to teach me English, and I'm like, okay, let's talk to the back. And she started laughing. I said,
So I just keep in mind what the other team might come in during the day. I know exactly what's The whole, that's awesome. It's just how proud is that?
Let's
Alright, we're gonna get through this. Everybody listen. I don't know that we need to come up and write it on the board. I think you all have it on your notes, and you're pretty solid in what we're teaching. So this is just a recap to make sure that it's brought back up to the front of your brain. We're revisiting it, hoping that it'll be something you remember. You guys have classroom design? Yes. So will one of you stand up and share with us the key points?
So ours was instructional environment, and this was kind of the basics of how you set up your classroom, how organized it may be, because oftentimes the classroom kind of reflects both your attitude and the attitude that's expected from your students. If you're going to have like messy things like all over your desk, your students are probably going to pick up on that and be like, oh, I can be a little bit messy with this. We also talked about how you can set it up for like groups, or it can be in rows depending on what your needs are within the classroom. Sometimes your students might be okay with the group, sometimes they might need to be separate. It all depends on what the classroom is at that time. And also about kind of a little bit of explaining proximity, because the way you set your class, you need to be able to get from point A to point B, C, and D really quickly without having to say, oops, excuse me, I need to get through, pardon me, excuse me. You're just causing distraction for those students, and you're not able to address whatever problems may be happening. And you need to try to be within 2 seats away, is what they said for proximity. And it's also kind of needs to be teacher focused. That's one thing that's important about it, because it needs to be all about looking at you. It's not about looking at the wall. It's not about, ooh, look at the colors. You need to keep it kind of plain, but not too plain, because then you're just going to be like, oh, we're just sitting in a big old gray box. That's not fun. So you need to be sure it's teacher focused, and you're not getting distracted. Your students aren't getting distracted by things on the wall. So those are the main points that we figured out.
They came up with a lot more than I even had on my cheat sheet. The only other thing I would say is clutter. You know, it's never bothered me, but then again, I'm a slob. But you want to keep it clean, because some kids that really stresses them out. You got to remember all your different personality types. It's not you got to cater to them, not to yourself. And so, I mean, when I realized that my TAs were saying, Miss Taylor, can we clean your desk? Then it was time to let them clean my desk, because it was bothering them. Story of my life. Okay, that was that. Classroom expectations. You guys ready?
Yes. So some of the key points for classroom expectations teach twos. It's really important for kids to understand what the expectation is, because and they don't know, like the expectation for putting Chromebooks away, or the expectation for coming into class unless you teach them. Because especially if they have multiple teachers, not all teachers have the same expectations. Less rules, having like 5 classroom rules or less, and then the rest just be, you know, like teachers like be respectful, participate, that sort of stuff. Exploiting proximity, there's the red zone, the yellow zone, and the green zone, and constantly moving around to change the proximity. Staying calm and having self-control, because it's like you said, like if you call a kid out or you yell at them, you lose them, and you want to avoid like that fight or flight reflex where
all the buzzwords.
Yeah. And then just having good rapport with your students, because, you know, if you have good rapport with your students and your students know that you care about them, they're willing to be more respectful and do more for you than teachers that they don't have good rapport with.
Awesome. The only thing I had on there is just, or actually Steve added it, is the Queen Victoria I'm not amused look. I have a really hard time with that. But I can't keep the stoic face, but you guys know that too. Awesome. Lesson planning?
So for lesson planning, we had make sure you have an objective. What do you want kids to learn at the end of the lesson? We have the types of learners. What kind of students do you have? Auditory, visual, kinesthetic. So that you could gear your lessons towards those students, or have a little bit of everything inside the lesson. Having the step-by-step in your lessons, so they could be able to refer back to whatever step you want them to be at. Anticipate questions that they might potentially have, so you could address them before taking more advantage of instructional time.
Oh, awesome.
And then higher order thinking questions when you're having conversations, or just the students with each other or in small group. And lastly, having exit tickets.
Oh, yeah.
Quick check for understanding so that.
Check for understanding, yeah. Awesome. Awesome. And the only other thing I would say about lesson plan and memory pacing, you don't want your kids, that's part of knowing your kids. You don't want them to be sitting there bored. We cut this early because everybody was already talking. We realized that you were done. Be flexible like that. There's teachers out there that, oh no, I said 15 minutes, it's going to be 15 minutes. And meanwhile, your kids are plotting, the next attack. So make sure you keep it busy, just busy enough that they have time to finish, but not enough time to sit around and get distracted and start going crazy. And make sure that your lessons are applicable. I think when you know your kids and you know what kind of kids they are and what they're interested in and all that through the surveys that we talked about, it's going to make it a lot easier for you. You know that kid has horses and I have horses, so I'm going to be able to connect with that kid. You can always find something. And let's be honest, I'm all about being honest, but if there's a kid that you just can't figure out and you talk to him a little bit and you get a little bit of information, maybe fib a little just to connect. Find something like, like in my case, I was never in a gang, obviously. But if I have a kid who's struggling with that, if you don't have a kid you can refer to, I could say, I had some students that were gang members and, they felt like it was the best thing. But he ended up being one of my favorite kids. And just basically showing that you're not biased against that. Some of these kids don't have a choice. Parents, uncles, dads, they're all in and out of prison and that's what they know. And they don't think we have any idea what that's like. And truthfully, I really don't, but they don't need to know that. Accountability and motivation, the first group, not the refocus group.
Alright, is it us?
Yeah, it's you guys.
It's us. Sorry, I gotta refocus. Okay, a couple bullet points, motivation, visual supports, and the incentives. Like, check in with them, be positive about it. When disciplining, show you care. And things like the bonus pat. Just a couple bullet points. Accountability, follow through. If you say you're going to do something, you better do it. Make students responsible for their behavior. But to get to that point, you need to set the expectations, like to teach students the norms and let them know what you expect and what you want because they don't know.
Awesome. I wanted to, you were saying when you're disciplining a child, I struggle with this because when I get mad, then I act like my child, like she's done something to personally affect me. And that's not why she does some of the stuff. And she's not even a bad kid. But I realize that my temper gets the best of me. And in a classroom of 25, 35, 40 kids, bless you, that it's so easy to get that mad. And remember, they are still a child. They just messed up. They address the deed, not the person, that kind of thing. When you're angry, don't say, you're stupid, or that was a really dumb thing for you to do, when reality is the kid just screwed up. It wasn't like they meant to be doing that maybe, or even if they did, they maybe didn't understand how it's going to affect you. So make sure that you still love them, and you're still kind. Even if you're so angry you have to walk away to calm down a little bit, still remember, they're kids, and at home all they hear most of the time is yelling or being ignored. And you show them that respect, and it's going to take you a long way. Last group, refocus group.
Okay, so some of the key points of the refocus that we should remember, it's not a punishment.
Wrong.
It's a reflective learning experience. It's best used maybe like school-wide implemented, but you can still do it in your own classroom or have like a buddy where you can have a student do the refocus in a different classroom. We kind of talked about earlier today to not overuse it and to also not use it in anger, but to kind of be calm when you are going about it. Some other things, so it's a dedicated area in your classroom that's like turned away from the attention of the other students. Should be a calm area. It's something you want to do like a teach to first, make it like another procedure in your classroom. So when it does occur, students know what is expected of them. Before the refocus happens, you want to do like a prompt or diffuser or proximity. And then after those things don't work, you can ask yourself the questions,
CIQs.
the CIQs, or can I teach? Can the other students learn? And can that student learn? And if any of those answers are no, then you do the process of refocusing, getting them calmly to the refocus zone. And then the refocus teaches or has ownership, understanding, so that the students kind of own up to what they did, they understand maybe why they did it, the action plan, like what are they going to do next, and then a commitment, sort of, I guess, solidifying what they're going to do next. And then they can rejoin the classroom when they are finished with it and when the teacher approves.
Good. So, when a kid's being sent to refocus and you've sent them over, do they get to dismiss themselves? No. That's key. And if they stand there and make all the noise in the world, you have to do your best to ignore it. And you need to, or say, you're not going to be dismissed when you're doing that. And remind them that that's not going to work. Every classroom I've ever been in where I saw somebody, even the really bad ones 2 years ago, the kids didn't mind going to refocus, which, I mean, you don't want them to, to them it is punitive. You're taking them away from their situation. But it's not really punitive in what you're asking them to do. You know, you're not saying, you're not coming back to school for 3 days, which would be a party for them, but you're not suspending them, you're not sending them out, which is what they want, because I know a lot of the schools have a real issue with their, what they call it, their resource center, or, they're like, ooh, send me to the resource center, because all their homies are in there. Well, obviously you don't want to let them do that, that's a reward. And it's not a punitive action in the sense that they're losing anything. They're still in class, they're still with their friends, technically, but you're removing them from the situation that they are aggravating, even if it's just aggravating you. So, does it make a little more sense now? I hope that, if nothing else, the 30 of you will know how to use the refocus correctly, and then eventually people around you will be learning how to do it right too, because it's being misused horribly, and therefore it's not effective. And the PATs, I think that's an awesome way to get the kids. You're going to have a lot less problems using the PATs, and then the one kid who maybe is just having a crap day, you send them over there, and you've got that 2 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever the time you have, to go over and say, are you okay? He may not answer you, or she may not answer you, but the fact is you showed interest, even after you just send them to refocus. And if they feel that caring from you, you're going to, I think a lot of you reading your reports and your homework and stuff, a lot of you have already seen huge differences because you've kind of understood a little bit more how powerful you are with these kids, and the emotion and the caring and the love, and I think it speaks volumes because they will do anything for you if they believe you care. Here's an adult that is from that college world that cares about me. Like, that's huge, and they do put you on a pedestal, which stinks because if you ever fall off that pedestal, it feels terrible, but. They do put you on a pedestal, and they do look up to you, and you will connect. He will connect with different kids than I connect with. That's the way it is. That's the way you want it to be. Does anybody have any questions or any concerns, complaints? This has been an awesome experience for me. Absolutely awesome. I appreciate you guys being here and coming consistently and putting this in when you've got everything else going on at your house with new kids and stuff. But thank you for being a part of this, and hopefully you'll go out and spread the word a little bit so that we can train some more people, and that they don't just write these kids off, or everything's punitive and punishment. It doesn't need to be that way. Of course, there's always going to be kids that fall into that category. There's always going to be that. But if the majority of your kids, some of you are saying 80-90% of your behavior problems went away with the PATs. I mean, that's huge. Think about that. That's huge. And if you can spread that to one other person, or you invite them to encourage them to come to our things next year, obviously we'll be tweaking some things and making it even better. You guys were our guinea pigs, for lack of a better term. But hopefully you got a lot out of it as well. I know it's been awesome for me. It makes me want to go back in the classroom, but it's not really possible right now. So, anybody? Steve?
Make sure you fill out the eval. I think only got like 11 from last time.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it didn't say next meeting. This way. And it's not next meeting.
This is it, right?
Double session. Double session.
Double session, right? 2 days. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
And I was like, what are you talking about? I think there's one coming up. I talked to Daryl.
Okay. What would happen if this event yeah. I did it in the 110 and a lot of them got it. Yeah.
Might be fun to do it at the end. Let's rewrite it.
Yeah.
They know the story.
We watched the movie and we're reading select parts of the play, but we're not reading the whole
Steve,
play.
what's coming up on that is not that.
Yeah. We're not reading the full thing.
Hey, I had breakfast yesterday. Does anybody know who G-Eazy is? The rapper?
Yeah.
He was freaking sitting right next to us.
What?
Yeah. I didn't know who he was. My kid went crazy.
Oh,
The little restaurant in
first thing.
Horsebowl. He walks up and he's kicking his grandma who's like 4'11", and he's
No, for the
walking
first
her,
hour.
and